Good afternoon, friends. This is John Singley, your host at Escambia Citizens Watch Live. It's Friday afternoon in beautiful downtown Pensacola. I think we are, Teresa. So we have some special guests this afternoon, and this is something that I have paid close attention to in my time, 10 years here in Florida now, and that is the evolution of the medical marijuana laws and industry, and more importantly, the relief and help it's brought to many, many, many people here in the state of Florida. And to tell that story right up here with all of you this afternoon, I'm pleased to introduce Holley and RayAnn Moseley. They're residents of Gulf Breeze. Many of you know Holley and RayAnn and the family. And they're in the studio with us this afternoon. And this is going to be a discussion about what Holley says is a ray of hope. It's a mother's story of love, healing, and the miracles of medical marijuana. And Holley, with that, I'll turn this over to you and RayAnn to tell us your story. What's going on here?
Okay, well, thank you for having
us. Yeah, you're welcome.
So RayAnn is here to share the success that she's had. She was born on her first day of life. She started having seizures, and she unfortunately suffered with them every day from there on out. RayAnn came to live with us when she was 2. We met when she was a patient at Sacred Heart Children's Hospital. I was her nurse, and she was a patient looking for a medical foster home. And I fell in love at first sight and begged my husband, can we bring this little girl home and give her a Christmas? And so that's what we did. And once she came home, she did not leave, did you?
Yeah.
And 2 years after that, we were able to legally adopt her. And then we decided to add to our family, and we added Presley and Gabrielle. So all along we thought, she said shucks, all along we thought for sure that we could fix this. We'll give her medications on a stable basis, and we'll do all of our therapy appointments and everything we're supposed to do, and we'll fix her. But what we didn't understand is that intractable epilepsy, her diagnosis is actually she has a KCNQ2 variant, so it's a hereditary diagnosis, or a genetic diagnosis. It was not that easy to treat, and so we tried multiple seizure medications. Sometimes she was on multiple medications at the same time, and they just made her very lethargic, and which means very tired, and she was falling a lot, and she just didn't feel her best. But what also the problem was, they weren't controlling the seizure activity. And so we didn't give up. We kept going. We ended up going to Miami Children's Hospital and had her evaluated for seizure surgery, which means it would be a brain surgery. But she wasn't a good candidate for the type of surgery we were hoping for. Yeah, so we didn't do that. Then we decided to try the vagal nerve stimulator. And so that's the little device that's implanted under the skin in her chest. Where's it at, RayAnn? Right there.
Where is the scar?
There's a
the scar.
Yes, there is a scar there, and it connects to the vagus nerve. And it's supposed to work similar to a pacemaker, so that when she has a seizure, it's supposed to try to stop the seizure. Again, it wasn't terribly successful, so we kept going. And that's when we finally decided to get a third opinion. And that's something I encourage all parents to do, is to just never give up, to keep searching, get as many opinions as you need to get until you get the answers, the help that you're looking for. And that took us to Shands, the University of Florida, and we had Dr. Paul Carney, who we tell every day that he saved our life. He hooked RayAnn up to a 24-hour, a week-long EEG. And so this is Miss RayAnn when she was very sick at Sacred Heart Children's Hospital. But here is what it looks like to have an EEG. And so she was hooked up to an EEG, and she had to spend the whole week in the hospital bed and have her brainwaves evaluated. And this is what it looks like for the brainwave, for the seizure, or for the activity in the brain. And he told us that RayAnn was on 4 anti-seizure drugs, and she was seizing constantly at night. And so that's terrifying. So he said, we're going to actually take away one of her medications. And so for me, I'm thinking all this time, more meds, increase the dose. However, he had a whole new way of thinking introduced to us. Let's find the med that's right for her. And so he took away a med, and her seizure activity improved. Then a few days later, he took away another of the anti-seizure drugs, and her seizure activity improved even more. And so now this has my husband and I kind of really a whole new way of thinking for us. We have to find, again, the med that's right for her, the treatment that's right for her. And so we keep going. We're going through kind of a roller coaster ride of good days and bad days. You know, we're making the most of the good days. Our family's active, and you know, we're at the zoo and playing sports and at the beach. Then we have really bad days where, you know, here's some pictures. You know, just tough days of RayAnn in a wheelchair and just not feeling well. But, you know, again, as parents, you never want to see your child suffer. You're going to do whatever you have to do to find a treatment for them. And that's just what we did. We just kept looking. And we tried all
Mom?
different... Yes, ma'am.
What?
That is an EEG. That's when you're...
I know. What is this? No, the drama.
Oh, that pajamas. Those are very old pajamas. You can't fit into those anymore. We had to find a certain type of pajama that would work with your hookup. Yeah.
And you know, find anything?
Yeah, we found a few pair. Yeah, look.
That.
It worked out.
This.
Yeah.
And what other?
But let's tell them the good news, okay? So,
Yeah.
Daddy is watching a documentary on CNN called Weed, and it's by Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and you've seen it. It features a little girl that's having seizures, and her mommy and daddy are scared, and they don't know what to do to help her. And
Wait, what is her name?
her name is Charlotte. And so so she lives in Colorado, and she's able to try medical cannabis. And so her parents give it to her, and they see success. Her seizures get better. And so mommy and daddy watch that documentary, and we say, oh my goodness, we have to get that medicine for RayAnn, right? And so that was our goal. We were able to get in touch with people in Colorado and go out there and visit and learn more about the plant and its medicinal properties and how it's grown and how it's processed. But the coolest thing is we got to meet other patients that had relocated from all over the world to also have access to this treatment. And so after leaving there, we had a fire lit under us. We had hope again to, you know, this could work for RayAnn. And just a few counties over, Representative Matt Gaetz had seen the same documentary. And he also called out to Colorado and said, this is too good to be true. How can I make this happen for patients in Florida? And so we were connected, and he invited us to Tallahassee to share our story and to talk at a workshop. And then it turned into talking at every committee meeting and making appointments with representatives. And I'll never forget being there. We met with one representative who, going in, we were told that he probably was not going to support the bill, but after hearing our story, he changed his mind and became one of our biggest advocates. So just with a little education and compassion, we were able to turn and change people's minds and hearts in Florida. And the Compassionate Medical Cannabis Act passed in 2014, and RayAnn got to meet Governor Scott And she took over his office and sat in his chair and made herself cozy. Do you remember that day? It was a
Yeah.
It was
How about another day?
Okay.
Can we?
It was a very it was
Good day with another day.
it was not. It was a very special day.
Not that thing.
When was this?
So this was taken the day that the bill passed the Senate floor, and it was headed to the governor's desk to be signed. And so we wanted Governor Scott to meet RayAnn and be able to put a face to this bill and to this need, so that when the bill's on his desk, we make sure he signs it. And so and he did sign it, and it went into law in 2014. And so, unfortunately, it still took some time for the rules and the regulations for the Florida Department of Health to be able to write the rules and regulations before the plant and the product would actually be available to patients. And so it was during this time that RayAnn's seizures started to increase. She's getting older, and she was hitting puberty, and we were seeing an increase in her seizure activity. So we decided, with the support of a neurologist, that it was time to get started on the treatment. And so that's what we did. RayAnn started. It's funny because we videoed this moment as if it was her first steps, or as if, it was any other huge momentous event that you videotape, in your child's life. And she takes her first dose of medicine, and it's just 0.2 ml, so it's just a drop. So we give it in her mouth orally, and we all cheer and celebrate. We had been waiting for this day, and just now had to wait and see, was it going to be successful for her. And so I was very diligent. I took very strict notes, worked very closely with her neurologist, and were able to wean her to a dose that we felt or titrate her to a dose that we felt was successful. And so initially, she was having improved gait, some little things, wasn't falling as much, maybe wasn't drooling as much. Her eyes and her complexion, her color just seemed clearer, more healthy. And so then eventually we started having days without seizures, and then eventually we started having weeks without seizures. You want to tell them how many years now that you are seizure free? 2. RayAnn is over 2 years seizure free. Yeah. And because of that, RayAnn's able to do so many things that maybe she did it, that we just never thought would be possible. She attended the Night to Shine dance. It's a Tim Tebow event. It was put on in Gulf Breeze. It was just the coolest night of the year. What do you have to say about it? You danced. You had a buddy to yourself all night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she also is now a member of Special Olympics and went and played a basketball tournament. And her team won a blue ribbon. Was that so cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, she's just doing other things academically and socially that we just always had hoped for. It's just any parents really, dream to just their child to be happy and healthy. And now we have this for RayAnn.
That's an amazing story of not only courage, but truly mother's love, and for RayAnn, the courage to work with all the doctors and the hospitals and the people that truly cared for her that's an awful lot to ask of a young child over a period of time. So it's inspiring to hear her story, and particularly the positive outcomes. Holley, what would you tell other parents about your journey? I mean, could you to save parents some of the heartache and the trouble? I'm sure this wasn't easy for the family, not only taking care of RayAnn, but also figuring out how to navigate the medical world and this new world of medical cannabis. What would you tell other families that may be in similar circumstances?
Right. So I say you need to build a strong team around yourself. And you have to realize that you as the parent, particularly the mother, is the head of the team. And so I had to learn as much as I could about epilepsy.
But you're a nurse.
I am.
Yeah.
So that gave me a little bit of
Right.
a heads up. Yeah. But, and then you just have to learn as much as you can about your kid and their epilepsy, and how they respond to medications and treatments. And just build a strong team. So find a really strong pediatrician that you trust and that gives you your cell phone number and you can speak with about anything and everything. Then you have to find specialists. And so RayAnn has many specialists. And just finding strong specialists that will all work together. And you as the parent have to navigate all of that. And then, it even dwindles down to teachers. Finding a good school placement and teachers that are supportive and loving, and finding therapists, physical therapists. So it just goes on. You just have to build that solid support system for your child.
You mentioned Dr. Gupta's book.
His
Weed.
documentary.
Yes. Weed. What was the big takeaway from that? What do you remember most in your journey?
Just the hope of, for children with epilepsy, once they have don't respond to the second anti-seizure drug, the chance that they'll respond to a third or a fourth is very slim. It's like 4% chance. So we knew we had to start looking outside of the box to other forms of treatments. And so this gave docs another form of treatment, potentially for kids that were labeled intractable or had no other form of treatment available.
What are some of the resources that are available here locally could you point to for other families?
Yeah, so I think, so regarding epilepsy or special needs, we have a really actually excellent community with so many different resources for Autism Pensacola, to epilepsy groups, to Special Olympics, or all these, to connect with other patients and families is great. But then from the medical cannabis point of view, I think it can be challenging and it can be extremely overwhelming for patients and for families to get started on that. So I think, again, you have to talk with your doctor and see if they're comfortable with this choice that you're making and if they will help you with this. And then if not, then you have to find a doctor who is willing to help you. And so you can go to the Florida Department of Health's website and you can click on a link that will give you a list of all the doctors in the state of Florida who are eligible to write a prescription and add you to the medical use registry. And then you meet with that physician, you pay out of pocket, and you meet with them, you get your medical marijuana card if you're a qualified patient, and they'll add you to the registry. And then from there, the patient goes to a dispensary and picks up their medication. But they will then have a card that shows that they're legal to use this product.
You mentioned earlier that you were adjusting RayAnn's medication, trying to find the right level. I think I still hear in the community, not just here, but everywhere I travel, there's still people who think that the medical marijuana that are available in these regulated states like Florida it'll get you high. And if I use this, I'll never get a job where there's drug screening and things like that. Could you separate fact from myth for us, Holley, at least in Florida?
Yeah, well, I can definitely share for RayAnn's point of view. RayAnn was taking an anti-seizure drug, and she was on clonazepam. And so Klonopin, is a very strong drug. She had taken it every night for 7 years. And anytime she had a seizure, she was given an emergency dose of diazepam. So she was taking drugs already that are very dangerous and serious, heavy medications. Our goal was to get her off of those medications and to give her an option that was potentially not going to get her high or make her sedated or feel lethargic. And so in our research, we had learned about the difference between different plants of cannabis, and we were interested, and RayAnn takes a product that's very high in CBD, which is the non-psychoactive part of the plant. and very low in THC, which is the psychoactive part of the plant. So our goal all along was to give her a product that was not going to make her high. And so she just takes this plant, or she just takes this dose twice a day, and we were able to completely wean her off her her clonazepam. So she's completely off of that. The weaning process of coming off of one of those medicines is really tough. But we got through it, and she's almost completely weaned off her other seizure drug. She had a very low dose of 12.5, and she'll be off pharmaceuticals and just using the CBD oil.
I was talking to a family member who works in oncology, a nurse also in oncology, and she said to me recently, she said, Dad, we are finding the tremendous outcomes with medical marijuana with oncology patients. And I said, well, do they fear that starting this because they'll get high? She says, look, these patients are so high already from opioids and other medicines. This is medical marijuana is nothing. And if they can, and as they use the medical marijuana more, they are able to get off of opioids, some of them, and it affects their chemotherapy in positive ways. And she said it is actually, she said, if anybody thinks this is a dangerous stuff, you ought to see the drugs that we're using in this hospital. So I can relate exactly to what you're saying. And I would say to all our viewers out there, if you're still not sure what to think about medical marijuana, I'd say to you, use an open mind and listen to people like Holley and RayAnn who have done it, used it responsibly and to great effect in their lives as well. I think the sooner we as a society can get off of these opioids, the much better we're going to be, both as a society, our health, and our budgets. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about is, and this may be going sort of into the advocacy world as more than your journey, but where does Florida, in your opinion, where does Florida need to go from here as far as medical marijuana? Is this a path of recreational marijuana? What are the next steps the state government, in your mind, need to take care of the people who are benefiting from this?
Yeah. So I don't care if people want to use marijuana recreationally. I think it's safer than other options. However, I think it does confuse people when it comes to the difference between medical and recreational. So I just focus on teaching people about the medical side of things because I've seen it work. I know it works. I know it has the potential to help so many patients. There's so much research out there, again, on the use for cancer patients, on the use to help people with autism. I mean, there's so many other diagnoses that we're just barely hitting that we need to, and it all goes back to research and the availability in the states. So much research is being done in Israel. I follow all of their sites and all that they have going on, and it's just absolutely encouraging. And we need that for Florida, and we need that for the U.S.
More research.
Oh, 100%. More research, can only lead the way to helping more diagnoses.
Well, I will speak for everybody here in the studio today. Teresa Hill here back behind the cameras, and the Clement family who provides us the facility to work in here, that we are really happy that you could find time to come in with RayAnn. This has been one of the more inspiring broadcasts we've had. And again, I would say to all the viewers out there, if you want to know more about this, Holley has written a book, and she was just telling me the book's available now around town. You want to say a little? Yeah, say something about that.
You can find it online
too.
at Amazon, right? Yeah.
And
And RayAnn loves YouTube, and she's put it on YouTube.
And I think Holley, not to speak for Holley and RayAnn, but I think the benefit of a book here is that it helps educate. More people can look at this and with an open mind and see how, in your family's case, it's been a huge and positive benefit to you. So To all of you who've joined us this afternoon, and I know many of you are going to be watching tonight and tomorrow night. I know how this works on Facebook. We thank you for joining with us, and to the Moseley family, may all of your days be bright and shiny, and may you have a healthy and productive life. Thank you for joining with us. So, folks, I'll see you on the next go-around here of ECW Live. Thanks again. This is John Singley saying have a great weekend.